Dragging my heavy suitcase behind me, I opened the front door and froze in disbelief. The entryway, which was supposed to be neat and organized, was littered with unfamiliar men's shoes scattered carelessly across the floor. Mail and flyers were tossed haphazardly on the doormat. Could it be a burglar? No, it doesn't feel like that. The air carried a strange scent of a life I didn't know. My chest tightened with confusion and unease as I stepped cautiously toward the living room. What I saw there was nothing short of shocking. It all began 6 months earlier. I had been assigned to a long-term business trip. As a sales representative for a medical equipment company, there was no way to avoid it. Before leaving, I made sure my home was spotless. In the living room stood an antique sideboard inherited from my grandmother, decorated with small figurines I had collected from around the world. The bedroom, with its soft blue wallpaper, was lined with custom-designed cushions I had made myself. But the most precious space of all was the small garden room in the backyard. It was my sanctuary, a place where I could be completely alone. Surrounded by carefully tended plants, I spent blissful hours there sipping herbal tea, reading, or painting as a hobby. Before I left, I handed my house key to my colleague Wendy, asking her to water the plants and collect the mail. If anything comes up, just call me. Those were my parting words as I locked the door. I never trusted my family with the key, and for good reason. My younger sister Hannah had always been the type to cross boundaries without hesitation. My father passed away when I was 5, and soon after, my mother remarried Dan. That's when Hannah was born. From that day on, I was pushed aside. Hannah was endlessly doted on by my mother and Dan, her selfish behavior always excused. While I was away, she would borrow my clothes without asking, use my cherished dishes without permission. And at her worst, she once broke one of my limited edition figurines and shrugged it off with, "Oops, I dropped it. Sorry." Every time, I burned with anger, but my mother's excuse, "Hannah's still just a child," forced me to swallow it. The only place I could ever find peace was at my late paternal grandmother's house. But after I graduated high school and began working, that grandmother passed away too. She left me a large inheritance. Combining it with the savings I had carefully built over the years, I was finally able to buy this house. To me, this home was a treasure, both a gift of memories from my grandmother and the result of my own hard work. But even then, Hannah threw a fit. "That's not fair. I'm family too. Isn't the house supposed to belong to all of us?" That was precisely why I never let the key fall into her hands. And now, the day I returned after 6 months away. Still standing in the doorway, I heard laughter spilling from the living room. A man's deep chuckle, a woman's shrill giggle, and then Hannah's unmistakable voice. The moment I heard it, dread swept over me. The thump of hands on the table, the clink of glasses, like they were having some kind of party. I left my suitcase by the entrance and cautiously walked toward the living room. On the hallway wall hung unfamiliar family photos. The picture of me and my late father, once displayed proudly, had been tucked away somewhere. In its place were wedding photos of Hannah and Kevin, along with snapshots of Kevin's parents. When I passed through the kitchen, I was stunned. The Scandinavian dishes I treasured were left dirty and scattered across the counters. The sink overflowed with unwashed plates, and my beloved copper kettle was stained with brown residue. Then, as I pushed open the living room door, my heart sank. My home had been completely violated. Half-eaten bags of snacks were dumped carelessly on the table, alongside open cans of beer set directly on the surface without coasters. The leather armchair my grandmother had cherished bore strange food stains. On the antique sideboard, once carefully decorated, sat random trinkets and dusty photo frames. In the garden room, every plant had withered away, replaced by stacks of cardboard boxes. And there, lounging on my sofa as if it were their own, sat Hannah, her husband Kevin, and Kevin's parents. They looked completely at ease, showing not the slightest trace of shame when they saw me. My sanctuary had been completely invaded. "Emma, you're back. Welcome home." Hannah rushed over with an exaggerated smile, throwing her arms around me. Around her wrist was wrapped my precious scarf. Kevin averted his eyes awkwardly, while his parents, George and Susan, sank deep into the sofa as if it were their own home. Hannah, how do you plan to explain this situation? My voice trembled as I demanded an answer. Hannah flinched for a moment at my anger, but quickly put on a defiant look. Come on, Emma, you remember them from the wedding, right? This is Kevin's dad and mom, George and Susan. Susan gave me a slow once-over, her gaze cold and measuring. Oh, so you're Hannah's sister, aren't you? We only exchanged greetings at the wedding, so I didn't recognize you. But Hannah told us you're rather high-strung. She said you've lived alone for so long that you're not very good with people. I'm not good with people? I was speechless. What on earth has Hannah been saying about me? Suddenly, memories of their outrageous behavior at Hannah and Kevin's wedding came rushing back. They had interrupted the reception with loud bragging about themselves, even tried to slice up the wedding cake and take it back home. At the time, I brushed it off, telling myself they were Kevin's relatives, but now I realized their true nature had been on display from the start. George stood up with a beer can in hand. Relax, no need to get worked up. We're family, so let's get along. Anyway, looks like we're running low on beer. Is there a store nearby? Their audacity left me stunned. Oh, that reminds me. Hannah clapped her hands as if she had just remembered something. Emma, this weekend we're hosting a party for Kevin's coworkers. About 20 people. Can you help us with the grocery shopping? Something inside me snapped. What are you talking about? I asked you to explain this situation. But Hannah only tilted her head with mock innocence. Oh, why are you so mad? Oh, looks like we're really out of drinks. Emma, would you mind going to buy some? Susan tossed the words at me like an order. I refuse. Why should I be treated like your servant? At my words, George and Susan frowned. How dare you? Talking back to your elders, who do you think you are? George barked. But I didn't budge. This is my house. Who do you think you are, squatting here without my permission? What? What are you saying? This house. George began, but Hannah quickly cut him off, her voice tense. Emma, stop making a fuss. Just go buy it, okay? Kevin, tell her. Kevin only looked away in silence. Realizing I wouldn't give in, George and Susan clicked their tongues in irritation and finally left to buy their own supplies. The moment the door closed behind them, I turned on Hannah and Kevin. What the hell is going on here, Hannah? I was shaking with fury as I confronted them lounging in my living room. What's the big deal, Emma? The house is huge, there's no harm in us living here too. Hannah reclined deeper into the sofa, her face completely unbothered. No harm. This is my house. How did you even get the key? Oh, your colleague? It wasn't hard. I just convinced her. I told her you had an emergency and asked her to hand it over, said I'd manage things and keep you updated. She gave it to me without a problem. Hannah recounted it with a calm, smug face. My anger boiled over. I specifically kept my business trip a secret from you. So how? What's that supposed to mean? Were you hiding it from me? Did you think it would cause a problem if I knew? I already heard from Mom before you left. Hannah glared at me, her expression sour. So my mother, despite my clear instructions, had told her everything, including the fact that I had given my key to a colleague. I pressed a hand to my forehead in disbelief. Cause a problem? Of course it would. You always try to barge into my space. The moment you knew I'd be gone for 6 months, I knew you'd move in, and I was right. For once, Hannah faltered. But then she crossed her arms and smirked. While you were gone, it would have been such a waste to leave this house empty. I took care of it for you, so you should be grateful. I was lost for words. Besides, you're always away on business trips. Isn't it better for us to stay here instead? You should feel reassured. She puffed out her chest proudly, as if she had done me a favor. I took a deep breath, struggling to hold on to my composure, but the sight before me made it impossible. Get out of this house. Now. Immediately. Kevin glanced at Hannah as if to caution her. Hannah, he murmured. But she didn't even look at him. Instead, she fixed her eyes on me with a mocking smirk. "What are you talking about, Emma? We live here now. If anything, you're the one who should be leaving." Her arrogance made my blood boil. Just then, the front door opened. George and Susan returned from their shopping trip, their voices echoing behind me. "This house is really spacious and comfortable, isn't it, Susan? Hannah has such great taste." "Oh yes, absolutely. Kevin should be grateful that Hannah bought such a wonderful home." "That's right. Kevin really married well." The moment I heard their words, my entire body went cold. Hannah had lied to them. She told them this house belonged to her. The realization left me shaken with confusion, anger, and above all, a deep sense of betrayal. My sanctuary wasn't just being defiled, it was on the verge of being stolen along with my very identity. At that moment, my phone lit up, and the name on the screen was my mother, Beth. Her voice carried a rare sharpness. "Emma, what is going on?" she demanded the moment I answered. "What do you mean?" "I just heard from Hannah. She said you're refusing to hand over the house." Her words made my mind go blank. "Hand it over? What are you talking about? This is my house. That can't be true. Hannah told me Kevin's business is doing so well that he owns several luxury condos. She said this house is hers, and she's been kind enough to let you stay here out of generosity." I was stunned. Hannah had even spun this outrageous lie for my mother, and she believed it completely. "So please, Emma, make Hannah happy. You're just a guest here. Of course you should listen to the homeowner. Pack up and leave right now." Over the phone, my mother scolded me as if I were the villain. I tried desperately to argue, but she refused to listen. "Listen, you need to leave right now. You should learn to be responsible like Hannah." "What are you saying? Hannah barged into my home, lied about it, and now she's trying to throw me out. Don't be ridiculous. Hannah would never lie. You've always been jealous of her." Her words cut deep, like salt in an open wound. After the call ended, I sat trembling with rage and despair. But soon, a stronger resolve rose inside me. I will not let this happen. This house, which I had worked so hard to make my own. I couldn't allow Hannah's lies and my family's pressure to take it away from me. I steadied myself and began to plan my next move. The next morning, I contacted a local lawyer and explained everything. After listening carefully, he said, "This is a clear case of unlawful occupation. You should take immediate legal action." I followed his advice, gathering my property deed and the rental management contract I had signed months earlier as a precaution. A few months earlier, I had signed a contract with a property management service. It included an option to rent out the house in case I ever had to be away from home for an extended period. And then, I reached out to someone. My colleague, Wendy. When she learned what had happened, she stood before me wearing a deeply apologetic expression. "Emma, I'm so sorry. If I had been more careful, none of this would have happened." Her eyes brimmed with tears. I apologized to her. "No, this isn't your fault. Who could have imagined my sister would show up at the office like that?" I met her at a cafe and listened as she explained what had happened. According to Wendy, Hannah had lied with remarkable cunning. "Your sister suddenly showed up at the office. She said she had an urgent message from you, that you needed the house key right away for an emergency. Later, she contacted me again, saying that to save you the trouble of managing everything, they would move in and take care of the place themselves." Wendy explained that Hannah's story had been so detailed there was no reason to doubt it. And also, Wendy continued. "She told me, Emma gets lonely living by herself, she actually wants her family around. So I thought this would be a good thing for you." Wendy's words made me realize the terrifying extent of Hannah's calculated plan. Hannah hadn't acted on impulse. She had crafted a meticulous plan to take over my house and ruin me. 1 week later, I summoned everyone to the living room, Hannah and Kevin, George and Susan, and my mother. They sat on the sofa, watching me with puzzled expressions. "Everyone, I have something to say." My voice was steadier than I expected. What is it, Emma? Why so serious? My mother asked, her face full of concern. This is important. I pointed to the documents spread across the dining table. First of all, regarding this property, legally, the sole owner of this house is me, Emma Johnson. I held up the deed for everyone to see. The smiles drained instantly from their faces. George and Susan, in particular, stared at the document in disbelief. That can't be. Emma, this house. Hannah's voice trembled. Wait, didn't Hannah say she was letting you stay here out of generosity? Susan's eyes narrowed suspiciously. No. I bought this house with my own money, and the deed is in my name alone. And while I was away on business, all of you occupied my home without my permission. Legally, that constitutes trespassing. The living room fell into suffocating silence. Hannah's face turned pale. Kevin kept his head down, unable to speak. George and Susan exchanged glances, unable to hide their unease. So here are your options. If you intend to remain here, starting next week the property management service will take over. In that case, you'll be required to pay fair market rent. Otherwise, you will vacate the house immediately. If you refuse, I'll report this to the police and pursue legal action. I produced the signed management contract, explaining that formal rental oversight was scheduled to begin next week. The monthly rent is $2,000. You'll sign an official lease through the agency and pay accordingly. Faced with my resolute stance and the legal evidence laid out before them, no one could utter a word of objection. Especially Hannah's face twisted with fear. My declaration, backed by legal proof, cast a heavy silence over the living room. Everyone was struck dumb, their eyes fixed on the documents before them. I watched their reactions with cold composure. George, Susan, Hannah, Kevin. I am the legal owner of this house. You are unlawfully occupying it. Either you sign a lease and pay rent, or you leave immediately. Which will it be? I pressed them once more to make a choice. What are you talking about? Hannah was the first to raise her voice. Her face drained of color, yet her eyes blazed with fury. You're single, you've got money, and you hogged Grandma's inheritance all to yourself. What's the harm in giving us a house or two? You're just being spiteful. Hannah. Stop it right now. Kevin tried to intervene, but it was too late. Rage contorted George and Susan's faces. What did you just say? Hannah, did you lie to us this whole time? Susan leapt to her feet, confronting her daughter-in-law. George's face turned scarlet as he roared. Kevin. Did you know about this? Were you in on her lies? Mom, Dad. I'm sorry. The truth is, everything Hannah told you was a lie. My business isn't thriving, it's collapsing. I'm drowning in debt. When Hannah suggested this scheme, I objected. But she forced it through. His confession shattered Hannah's web of lies and confronted his parents with devastating reality. Emma, I'm sorry. We can't possibly afford rent right now. Hannah shot him a venomous glare, her face chalk white, but Kevin looked too exhausted to meet her fury. Hannah. Everything you said was a lie. My mother's voice quivered as she stared at her younger daughter in disbelief. Hannah dropped her eyes to the floor and said nothing. Her carefully crafted image as an elite wife had crumbled into dust. I felt not a shred of sympathy. They had squatted in my house for months, even tried to drive me out. There was no reason to show mercy. Very well. Since you admit you cannot pay rent, that leaves only one option. Leave this house. Immediately. At my words, George and Susan erupted in anger, Kevin slumped in despair, and Hannah bit her lip hard in frustration. The legal documents and their own confessions had placed the power entirely in my hands. There was no room left for argument. My mother could only sit in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the reality unfolding before her. The daughter she had adored, Hannah, had lied to the entire family and betrayed me in the most shameless way. The truth left her visibly shaken. What kind of nonsense is this? You're the one at fault, you tricked our Kevin. George bellowed, springing to his feet. Susan followed, her glare burning into Hannah. You humiliated us with your lies. Don't ever show your face again. George and Susan unleashed their fury on Hannah and Kevin, then hurriedly packed their belongings that very day. I didn't say a single word until they were gone. Without bidding anyone farewell, they disappeared into the night. The next day, Hannah and Kevin also agreed to leave. You're really cruel, Emma. Do you honestly think you'll be happy after doing this? Even at the end, Hannah clung to her arrogance. Tears glistened in her eyes, but they weren't tears of remorse, they came from frustration that she couldn't get her way, and from the wound to her pride. Kevin apologized to me. Emma, I'm truly sorry. This is all my failure. His weary, broken posture reflected the reality that Hannah's lies had destroyed everything. Pack your things and be gone by this afternoon, before the property management service steps in. I delivered the words calmly. Hours later, Hannah and Kevin gathered their things in silence and left my home. A few days later, my mother came to see me. Her eyes were filled with tears. Emma, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Her apology weighed heavily. Large tears spilled down her cheeks, and her voice trembled with sobs. Emma, I was such a fool. I believed everything Hannah told me and refused to listen to you. I had no idea I was causing you so much pain. She gripped my hands tightly, repeating her apologies again and again. Her hands shook, and her hot tears fell onto my skin. For the first time, I saw my mother truly blame herself. After years of doting on Hannah and pushing me aside, she finally recognized her mistake. Quietly, I squeezed her hand in return. Mom, as long as you understand now, that's enough. But I won't let myself be used under the name of family anymore. From now on, I'll defend my own rights. I spoke clearly, and she nodded deeply. Yes, you're right. You've done nothing wrong. As your mother, I should have protected you. From now on, I'll put you first. Please, forgive me. In her words, I felt the first signs of reconciliation. It would take time to fully forgive her. But perhaps this was the first step toward bridging the gap that had divided us for so long. Later, I heard that Hannah divorced Kevin and fell into hardship. Kevin's business collapsed entirely, leaving them homeless. Hannah's selfishness and reckless spending had fueled constant arguments once their finances were gone. And Kevin's love for her dried up completely. After the divorce, Hannah drifted from one friend's couch to another, unable to find steady work, surviving on day labor jobs. My mother and Dan were devastated by her situation, but they decided that helping her further would do more harm than good. They cut off all financial support, hoping she would be forced to rebuild her life on her own. George and Susan, too, lost their reputation when it became public that they had been deceived by their son and daughter-in-law, and that they had been squatting illegally in my house. And my home finally returned to peace. The garden room, once left in ruin, I restored with care until it became even more beautiful than before. This house is not just a building. It is my sanctuary, my inheritance, my home. And at last, happily, it belongs to me again. Now it stands as my true sanctuary. A space untouched by others, shaped by my values and aesthetics. Most importantly, it is where my rights and dignity are preserved. What I learned from this ordeal is that trusting someone and surrendering your rights are two very different things. Family ties, because of their emotional pull, can tempt us to give up what matters most. But fairness is not guaranteed in family. To protect one's own dignity, sometimes you must stand firm with courage. Through this experience, I became stronger, more independent, more self-reliant.